Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a really interesting stack of materials here, articles, research, your notes. And they all seem to point towards one fascinating place in Bangladesh, the Kishoreganj district.
That's absolutely right. This deep dive is really custom tailored for you, focusing just on the material you've gathered. We're aiming to pull out the key insights about Kishoreganj, its history, geography, culture, what makes it tick, based only on these sources.
Right. Think of this as maybe your shortcut to getting a solid picture of this vibrant area. We'll try to uncover some surprising facts, maybe a few memorable stories, just helping you grasp what really stands out about Kishoreganj from your sources.
Exactly. We'll synthesize the information, try to connect some of the dots that appear across the different pieces, and, explore why this district seems to hold such a significant place in Bangladesh's wider story.
Okay, so where do we start? What are the sort of fundamental basics about Kishoreganj that jump out from these sources?
Location. Well, first off, its location. It's a district smack dab in the center of Bangladesh. Administratively, it falls under the Dhaka division.
Dhaka division. Okay.
But historically, it's interesting, it was actually considered part of the larger Mymensingh area.
Ah, right. And how did it evolve, like administratively? When did it become a district?
It became a full district relatively recently, February 1st, 1984.
1984. Okay.
Yeah, but before that, it had been a subdivision for a long time, since 1860. And the main town, the municipality, that was established even earlier, way back in 1869.
Wow. Okay. So a long history as an administrative hub, even before becoming a district. Interesting progression. What about size? Do the sources mention its area population?
Yeah, there are a couple of figures mentioned for the area. One says around 2,688 square kilometers. Another one gives a slightly different number, 2602.88 square kilometers. So in that ballpark.
Close enough. And people.
Population-wise, there's a 2016 source mention that puts it at approximately 3 million people.
3 million. That's substantial for the area.
Yeah.
How is it structured internally, Upazilas?
Right. It's divided into 13 upazilas. And what's noted is that 8 of these upazilas also have their own municipalities, according to the sources.
13 Upazilas, 8 municipalities within them.
Got it. And its neighbors. Who's around Kishoreganj?
Looking at the borders described, to the north, you've got Mymensingh and Netrokona.
Okay.
To the west, Gazipur and Narsingdi.
Uh-huh.
South, it mentions Netrokona again, and also Brahmanbaria.
Right.
And then heading east, you find Sunamganj and Habiganj. So yeah, quite centrally located, touching a lot of different districts.
Okay, that gives us a good map in our heads.
So now we have the basics down. Let's maybe step back a bit. The origins. How did Kishoreganj even get its name?
Oh, I like these origin stories. What did the sources say?
Well, the common account, according to what we have here, traces it back to the 6th century. Apparently, there was a landlord, Sri Krishnadas Pramanik.
And his son was named Nandakishore. It's said that this Nandakishore established a ganjo, which is like a market or a small town.
Ganjo, good.
And the name Kishoreganj essentially comes from Nandakishore's ganjo. So, Kishoreganj.
Ah, Nandakishore's Ganjo. Makes sense. Pretty direct link. So, roots going way back over 1,000 years then. What about even deeper history? Ancient times?
Yes, the sources do mention that. In ancient times, this whole area, what's now Kishoreganj, was historically part of the larger Kamrup kingdom.
Kamrup Kingdom, right. And then after that period, different rulers came and went.
Exactly. The sources mention rule by the Pal dynasty, the Borman dynasty, and the Sen dynasty. This was around the 11th and 12th centuries. These were, major regional powers back then.
Okay.
And following them, the area saw some smaller, more independent kingdoms pop up, established by groups like the Koch, the Hajang, and the Garo people.
So a real mix of influences over time. When did Muslim rule start to become prominent in this region?
Well, it started expanding into the wider Mymensingh area, which, remember, included Kishoreganj. This was under Aladdin Hossein Shah. The period mentioned is 1493 to 1519.
Okay.
But the sources note it really came fully under Muslim rule during the reign of the Mughal Emperor Akbar.
Right, Akbar. And this period, the Mughal era, leads us to a really major figure highlighted in the sources.
Yes, exactly. This is where it gets, I think, really fascinating. The sources put a big spotlight on Isa Khan.
Isa Khan, one of the Barapoyans, right? Famous for resisting the Mughals.
The very same. One of the most famous of the 12 chieftains, known for his long resistance against Mughal expansion.
And what's his specific tie to Kishoreganj, based on the material we have?
This is key. His second capital was located right there in Kishoreganj, specifically at Junglebari, which is in Karimganj Upazila.
His second capital. Wow. So
Oh.
very important strategically for him.
Absolutely. And you can still see traces of it. The sources mention the ruins of one of his ancient forts. That's at Agarasindur in Pakundia Upazila.
Ruins still there. That's
Yeah.
incredible. So it wasn't just like a minor part of his territory. It was central.
Seems that way. And did he have any major military moments there?
Did the sources mention any battles?
Yes. One source specifically highlights a victory for him. It says Isa Khan defeated the Mughals in a large naval battle right there at Ashtagram.
A naval battle. And Kishoreganj, right, that connects to the geography, which we need to talk about.
Exactly. That battle would have been a huge deal for the region at the time. So shifting from those historical battles to the land itself, the geography of Kishoreganj seems overwhelmingly shaped by water.
Yeah, that really comes through in the sources. It's located near the old Brahmaputra River, right?
Yes, that forms one of its borders. And besides that, so many other rivers are mentioned flowing through it. You've got the Meghna, Kalni, Danu, Surma, Baira, Aralkan, Kushiara. The list goes on. It's crisscrossed by rivers.
What about the river actually running through Kishoreganj town itself? The Norosunda.
Ah, yes, the Norasunda. It flows right through the main town. But the sources note, and they mention it with a kind of local sadness, it's largely dried up now.
Oh, that's a shame. A river drying up in the middle of town. But the really defining feature, the one mentioned again and again, is the Haor.
Yes, the Haor, Haor. It's a vast wetland area, and apparently nearly half of the entire Kishoreganj district is this Haor landscape.
Half the district, wow. And the sources, they paint this incredible picture of, like, total transformation between seasons there.
They really do. It sounds dramatic. In the monsoon season, the description is of these huge, vast water bodies everywhere, making the whole Haor area look like an inland sea, basically.
Like a sea.
Then, completely different in winter, the water recedes and it transforms into these enormous stretches of flat land, just vast green or golden paddy fields as far as the eye can see.
It sounds stunningly beautiful, but also, I imagine, incredibly challenging for the people who live there.
It definitely is. The sources portray life in the Halor as, deeply intertwined with nature, but also often a struggle against it.
The struggle how?
Well, they face constant threats. Things like sudden, devastating floods that can wipe out crops, and even, tragically, dangerous lightning strikes are mentioned as being quite common there.
Wow.
Their livelihoods are completely tied to this cycle, mostly fishing in the wet season, and farming, especially rice, in the dry season. There's one really powerful phrase used in a source. It translates roughly as, they fight a war with time.
Fight a war with time. What does that refer to?
It seems to refer particularly to the harvest season, racing to get the crops in before potential floods hit.
Yeah.
That constant pressure.
That really paints a picture. And transport must be totally different depending on the season.
Completely. During the monsoon, it's all about boats and trawlers. That's the only way to get around large parts of the Haor.
Right. Fighting a war with time? That really sticks with you. It makes you wonder about the kind of people this unique, challenging environment shapes.
And the sources definitely emphasize the people. Beyond the geography, Kishoreganj is described as this significant cultural hub. It's called a meeting point of Ujan, that's upstream and bodied downstream cultures.
Ujan and Bhati cultures, interesting.
Yeah, making it rich in history, cultural values, religious significance, but also, the sources say, embracing modernity. And this unique mix seems to have produced just an astonishing list of, notable personalities.
Okay, this list in the sources really caught my eye. It's genuinely impressive.
Yeah.
Who are some of the standouts?
Well, let's start with politics because it's quite remarkable. The sources tell us that 3 former presidents of Bangladesh came from Kishoreganj.
3? Seriously?
Yes, Syed Nazrul Islam, Zilur Rahman, and Abdul Hamid, all hailed from this one district.
That is incredible. A huge contribution to national leadership.
Absolutely. And they also note that another former president, Shah Abdul Ahmed, while not from there, studied at the local Gurdial College.
Still a connection. Any other major political figures mentioned?
Yep. Syed Ashraful Islam, who was the son of Syed Nazrul Islam, is highlighted, a very respected figure. Also, Manoranjan Dar, who served as an advisor in the crucial wartime government.
Okay.
And Mujibul Haq Chunu, named as the Secretary General of the Jatiya Party. So a strong political lineage continues.
It really does. What about outside politics? Arts, literature?
Definitely strong links there, too. The sources mention Chandrabati. She's considered the first Bengali woman poet way back in the 16th century.
16th century, wow.
And also Duish Bangshidash, who composed the famous Manosamangal epic. Both are connected to the area.
And there's another really, really famous connection here, isn't there? Someone many people worldwide would recognize.
Absolutely. The legendary filmmaker Satyajit Ray. His ancestral home is right there, in Masua village,
Masua village?
which is in Kuchadi, Upazila. The sources specify that his father, Sukumar Ray, and grandfather, Upendra Kishore Ray Chowdhury, both hugely famous writers themselves, also lived there.
The Ray family connection, that's amazing. Their ancestral home is still a landmark.
Apparently so. It's mentioned as a notable site.
Okay, who else is on this remarkable list? It seems endless.
It keeps going. The sources name the world-renowned painter Zainal Abidin,
Zainal Abidin, of course.
Captain Sitara Begum, a noted freedom fighter, journalist Ilyas Khan, Hamid Uddin Ahmed, who was the first agriculture minister of East Pakistan, industrialist Johorul Islam, Abdul Alim Chowdhury, a martyred intellectual from the Liberation War period, and even former Chief Justice Mizama Hussain. It's quite a diverse and impactful group of individuals, all tied to Kishoreganj.
It really is. It begs the question we might come back to later.
Yeah.
Why? What is it about this place?
A very good question. Now, building on that, let's talk about some specific landmarks and attractions, places that the sources highlight as particularly unique or important within Kishoreganj.
Okay, the Salakia Ega Maidan has to be near the top. The descriptions are incredible.
Without a doubt, the sources really emphasize its scale. It's described as arguably the largest Eid congregation field, well, in the entire Indian subcontinent, maybe even Asia.
The largest in Asia. Wow. Where exactly is it?
It's situated right by the Norasun River, the one we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It covers about 7 acres, and the capacity mentioned is around 105,000 worshippers gathering for the Eid prayer.
105,000 people.
Yeah.
That's hard to even picture. What about the name Salakia? Any story there?
There are a couple of theories mentioned. One connects it to the word sufla, meaning abundance or well-being. Another story suggests that an early prayer gathering there had 1.25 lakh worshippers. That's 125,000. And Soalakia somehow evolved into Salakia, so maybe linked to its sheer size from early on.
Interesting possibilities. A truly massive and historic gathering place. Then there's a Pagla Mosque. The details about this one in the sources are, well, quite something.
Yes, the Pagla Mosque, described as being about 250 years old, also located right on the bank of the Norasun River. The naming stories mentioned are interesting. One involves a spiritual person known as Pagla, which can mean mad or divinely eccentric. Or another story mentions a Pagla Mibi associated with its founding, so it has this very distinctive, slightly mysterious name.
This does raise the question, why Pagla? The sources seem to suggest it's linked to a person, maybe someone seen as spiritually intense or unconventional, gives it a unique character.
It certainly does. And what's truly fascinating and detailed quite extensively in the sources is its incredible reputation for donations.
Yes, the donations. Tell us about that.
The practice described is that these donation boxes, or vaults, are opened every 3 to 4 months, and the amounts collected are just, well, staggering. Millions and millions of Bangladeshi taka, plus foreign currency, gold, silver ornaments.
Millions. Is there a specific example?
Yes, one source gives a very specific, recent figure from April 2025. It states that in one opening, they collected over 9 crore taka.
9 crore. That's, what, over 90 million taka?
9.178 million BDT is the figure cited. So yeah, over 9 crore. Plus foreign currency and gold on top of that. It's almost unbelievable.
It really is. For donation boxes, what happens to all that money? Where does it go?
The sources explain it's used for the mosque's own development and upkeep, naturally, but also, significantly, for charitable works, supporting orphanages, madrasas, helping the poor and needy in the area.
That's good to hear. But why? Why do people donate such vast amounts specifically here? Is there a belief attached?
Yes, that seems key. The sources mention a widely held belief among people that making a donation at the Pagla Mosque helps fulfill their wishes or prayers.
A belief in answered prayers through donations.
Exactly. And this belief is apparently so strong that it draws people of all faiths to come and contribute. Not just Muslims.
People of all faiths donating. That's another remarkable detail. It's more than just a mosque. It's this center of immense hope and charity, fueled by this unique local belief.
Precisely. Anything else stand out in terms of places?
What about that road, the all-weather road?
Ah, yes. The all-weather road is highlighted, specifically the stretch, about 14 kilometers long, that runs from Mithamoin to Ashtagram.
Okay, what's special about it?
Well, apart from being an important piece of infrastructure in the Haor region, there's a unique detail mentioned from 2024. A source notes that this 14-kilometer stretch was decorated with traditional Alpana artwork, making it the country's longest Alpana decorated road at the time.
The longest Alpana road. That's cool. What's the drive like?
The sources describe it as pretty stunning, especially during the monsoon. You're driving on this raised road with water stretching out endlessly on both sides. It directly connects, modern engineering with the raw, watery beauty and challenges of the Hoare landscape.
So a mix of infrastructure, art, and that unique Ho environment. What about other historical sites? Any others mentioned?
Yeah, the sources list quite a few others worth noting. There's Chandrabhati's Shiva Temple, connected to the poet we mentioned, the ruins of Isa Khan's forts Jungle Bari and Agorasindar, which we talked about earlier. Gudadayal Government College is described as an ancient and important educational institution. There is mention of a watchtower that offers city views. Manab Babu's house, noted for its history or architecture. Syed Nazrul Islam Square, presumably named after the former president, and several old landlord houses, the term used is Ebat by Def, Jomidar Bari, in places like Gagaya, Taljunga, Dalla, and Nikli, suggests a rich architectural heritage from that era still visible.
Lots to see, potentially. Okay, let's shift slightly towards the economy. Do the sources mention any unique products or economic features of Kishoreganj?
Yes, one product gets singled out for being particularly famous. Astagram's white cheese. It's known locally as paneer.
Paneer, okay. Famous how?
Well, its reputation is said to extend even beyond Bangladesh. One source makes this rather remarkable claim. It says this cheese has reportedly even satisfied the palates of the royal family back in England.
The British royal family. Eating cheese from Ashtagram, that's quite a claim.
It is indeed a fascinating detail, if true. More broadly, Kishoreganj is also noted for its kain-planed by its freshwater fish, which makes sense given all the rivers in the Har.
Right, fish would be key. What about industry in general? Is it industrialized?
Not heavily, according to the sources. They note limited industrialization, mentioning a former sugar mill that's now closed. And interestingly, one source kind of frames this positively, suggesting that this lack of heavy industry contributes to the district having a relatively good environmental position.
An interesting perspective. Less industry, better environment.
And here's one more really surprising historical tidbit mentioned in one of the sources. It's quite specific.
What is it?
It claims that the very first cricket match organized outside of the British colonies actually took place in Masua village, Kotiari Upazila.
Wait, the same village as Satyajit Ray's ancestral home?
The very same village, according to this source. A potential claim to a very early piece of international cricket history right there in Kishoreganj.
That's fantastic. Who knew? A potential cricket history connection, too. So, okay, let's try and pull all of this together now. We've covered a lot. What does this deep dive into the material on Kishoreganj really mean for you, the listener, the person who brought these sources to us? What are the key takeaways?
Well, I think what stands out clearly is that Kishoreganj is it's far more than just another district on the map. Based purely on these sources, it offers this incredibly deep window into Bangladesh's layered history. You've got ancient kingdoms, you've got the strategic struggles of figures like Isa Khan,
Right.
and then you have its unique identity, profoundly shaped by that challenging yet beautiful geography of the Har.
And the sources clearly show it's a district that has sort of punched above its weight in producing an extraordinary number of significant national figures in politics, literature, art. It seems almost paradoxical, given the environmental challenges described.
It does. And it's presented as a place where this deep history and architectural heritage, the forts, the Jomidar Barracks, meet a vibrant contemporary culture, and where these unique local traditions like the just astounding generosity seen at the Pagla Mosque continue to thrive today.
Absolutely. And importantly, perhaps, the sources do hint that experiencing this is possible. They mention travel routes from Dhaka train options to Kishoreganj town or nearby Bayrab Bazaar. They talk about local transport.
Yeah, suggesting that exploring the Har, maybe driving that Alpana road, visiting the key sites, it's something potentially accessible for you to do.
So we've covered a huge amount in this deep dive. From the origins of the name, its crucial role under Isa Khan,
The life-defining geography of the Har, those dramatic seasonal shifts,
that incredible roster of people who shaped the nation.
and the captivating landmarks, from the sheer scale of the Salaki Eidgah to the mystery and charity surrounding the Pagla Mosque.
Yeah. Based purely on these sources, it's clear Kishoreganj has this rich, complex, and really quite captivating identity.
Deeply intertwined with both the power of nature and the flow of Bangladesh's history.
Which brings us maybe to a final thought as we wrap up. A question that lingers. How does a district shaped so profoundly by the often harsh, powerful natural environment of the Haor, how does it manage to nurture and produce such a seemingly disproportionately high number of national leaders, celebrated artists, unique cultural phenomena like the Pagla Mosque?
Yeah, what does this story of Kishoreganj, as told through just these sources we've looked at, what does it tell us about resilience, about the resilience of people living so closely, sometimes combatively, with nature, or maybe about the unique relationship between a strong, distinct local identity and the ability to influence the national stage?
Something definitely to mull over as you process everything we've unpacked today about this truly fascinating corner of Bangladesh. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.